Will join us in the pledge. We'll get opened up today. Senator McConkey, would you like to lead us?
I would love to. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good morning, everyone. We will get started today with House Bill 250, Rep. Newell. You are here, and we will recognize you to introduce the bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the committee members for giving me your time and attention today. My name is Jody Newell, and I represent Cheshire 4 and Keene. This particular piece of legislation, as amended, it is a simple and straightforward tweak enabling local governing bodies to regulate muzzling requirements for dogs licensed in that municipality. As you know, we are Dillon's rural state, so of course, authority must be expressly granted to localities in order for them to do this. A few months back, our city council, and I believe you should have a letter in your inbox from our mayor and possibly one from our city attorney as well. A few months back, our city council in Keene attempted to do the right thing in responding to a serious concern from a constituent after a tragic encounter with a known aggressive dog. In order to provide for the safety of the broader public, the broader community of people, and of fur babies, city leaders proposed that demonstrably aggressive dogs be required to wear a protective muzzle when in public. I want to take this opportunity to remind everyone that this is not only in the interest of the general public, but also to the aggressive animal itself and their owners, as allowing this dog to be put in situations that, for whatever reason, have proven to elicit dangerous and seemingly uncontrollable behavior is like playing Russian roulette. The most humane solution in this situation is a preventative one. Unfortunately, in spite of their good intentions, according to the law, this was not within the council's purview. So it's up to us to pass legislation that would allow the city to implement a reasonable and effective solution. So my bill today very simply allows them to do the right thing for their constituents. And we had a couple folks come to the House hearing to speak about particular situations that had happened. Since then, I have heard so many more where they are dogs who have had a history, but of course, this was replicated later on. What we want to be able to do is if something happens, we want to be able to prevent it from happening again. I've also heard from veterinarians, dog trainers, different people who are involved in that space about the idea of muzzles. I think we think of a muzzle and we think of something that's very restrictive and cumbersome. There are actually very humane, very comfortable muzzles that can be worn, and it's really just a protective measure if a dog is predisposed. Representative Bixby is here. He can speak to the committee in their amendment. Essentially what we wanted to do, the bill was too broad, and we don't want this to be used. We don't want to open the door for this to be used in any way that it's not intended to. It is specifically tied to the behavior. So fortunately, we have in our RSAs, we have definitions of what is a nuisance dog. That wouldn't qualify. And then what is I think it's malicious and then vicious dog. Those would qualify because they are dogs that have done demonstrably harmful and dangerous, exhibited demonstrably dangerous and harmful behavior. So their amendment really tried to pinpoint that we want to tie this to the behavior and not anything else. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the committee? In reviewing this, would you be opposed if we narrowed it just a little bit more? I think I don't have the exact language in front of me, but as I read the statute, it seems like we could target this just slightly a little bit more. So
not opposed at all. I appreciate that.
And when I get something together, we'll do with it. I've kind of quickly reviewed it, and unfortunately, we have so many bills we're looking at all at the same time. I didn't have a chance to have any language drafted.
Understood. Yeah.
Senator McConkey, the question.
Yes. Representative Newell, thank you. Perhaps you could educate me just a little here. So I have a long history of training protection dogs, large breeds. And one of the, not Schutzhund, but my involvement was through a group, French ring sport. In France, they have, it's an accepted policy to bring your dog anywhere you go. You can go in a restaurant, you can go anywhere you want, but the caveat is that if someone is uncomfortable in the room or where you are, you simply muzzle your dog. Otherwise, they're not. I'm a contractor, I'm outside. I don't know where this vicious dog list comes from, but I found little terriers to be every bit as aggressive as the Rottweilers
Yeah.
that I deal with. So I'm interested to look into that. I understand what you're doing. So I'm just wondering, real briefly, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Can you tell me what your idea in here is of vicious dogs?
So the definitions, I believe it's malicious and vicious. Am I thinking of that right?
It's actually something slightly different. I'll look it up.
Okay, yeah, I think I actually have it printed in my
whatever
notebook as well.
pertains to
So essentially what it is it's behavior, obviously attacking, that would be the vicious dog, attacking humans and other animals. But there is also, if a dog is to run after little children, for example, chase after people, that kind of thing, that is the lower degree. So vicious is the more actually has harmed an individual or an animal. And then the lesser degree between, the medium between nuisance and vicious, I'm blanking on what the exact term is. But the middle ground is chasing after and kind of threatening behavior. Menacing, that's the word, sorry.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and if I could just say really quickly, I had a pit bull. It was my first dog. And I'll tell you that small dogs went after my pit bull more than he ever did to anybody else. It's not intended to be tied to breed or anything, and we want to make sure that it isn't at all.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Rep. Bixby?
Yes. So I haven't quite found that statute yet.
Oh,
but I will.
don't be concerned.
So, so Rep. Newell explained pretty much the circumstances that brought this bill to us. In our hearings, we heard from a couple of different groups that had concerns about the bill. Initially, it came to us as just muzzling as opposed to muzzling of vicious dogs, and at that point, there was concern from sportsmen and owners of working dogs that might allow the requirement to muzzle those dogs without a real cause. And there was also concern from the American Kennel Club that it could allow statutes that would require muzzling by breed, like, for instance, pit bulls or something. And both of those were clearly things that we wanted to avoid, which is why we why we chose to add the vicious dogs as defined in 466-31. And we considered doing a more extensive amendment that would have gone into more details about exactly what a vicious dog was, or made some changes to 466-31. We considered doing that, and we decided that that was more likely to invite more problems than we wanted to invite. And so we felt that simply defining it as vicious dogs as defined in the RSA would be appropriate for the level of oversight that this is allowing. And I just wanted to sort of get back to the point of what this bill does. It does not actually say that vicious dogs should be muzzled. It simply allows municipalities to do that. And the reason that the Keene city attorney felt that doing a muzzling ordinance at the city level might conflict with state law is because there is state law already that requires muzzling in certain circumstances, which is essentially in the case of dogs that are exempted from rabies vaccination. So because there was a state law that required muzzling, that city attorney felt that in order to have an ordinance that it needed to be explicitly allowed by state law. So I'm happy to take questions, and I might be able to find that reference if you want to look it up, or if you want to do some research. And oh, here it is. Okay, so if it growls, snaps at, runs after, or chases any person or persons not on the premises of the owner or keeper, if it runs after or chases bicycles, motor vehicles, motorcycles, or other vehicles being driven, pushed, pulled on streets, highways, or public ways, if, whether alone or in a pack of dogs, it bites, attacks, or preys on game animals, domestic animals, or fowl, or human beings. And there's one of the things that is a little bit that's a little bit problematic in the way that this is laid out in 46631 is that it it talks about the nuisance, vicious, or whatever the third term is, but it doesn't. But when it describes those, it doesn't make a clear demarcation of which one of these are nuisance, which one of these are militia, are problematic. It doesn't really have a clear label of what the gradation is. So if you want to be very ambitious and rewrite that entire portion of statute, then we wouldn't object. But I'm not sure what your time constraints are.
Right. My thought was limiting it to 46631 2G.
Okay.
2G.
Okay. Yeah. So
That was my thought. And that kind of narrows the definition,
Yeah.
keeps it more to the
okay.
activities.
I don't think we would have an objection to that. So on a separate topic, which I believe you were alerted to by the commissioner and Steve Crawford and my chair, there is a issue with the way that we amended the dog license fees last year. And essentially what happened was we made an adjustment in terms of where the money went, and accidentally in doing that adjustment, we apparently adjusted it so that it reduces the fee, the income by 25 cents.
I saw
And-
that email. Let's stay to this
and-
bill right now.
right.
If we want to consider an amendment, you and I can talk after.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention that this might be an appropriate bill for putting that amendment onto, so you might not want to like exec it right now, but we might
right.
want to hold it to use as a vehicle.
We can do that. Further, any questions for Representative Bixby? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Rob, you guys want to weigh in on this, or everybody's good? Anybody else wants to testify on 250? All right, seeing none, we'll close the hearing. Representative Comtois is here, so we will move on to House Bill 272. Thank you. And we will recognize you to introduce. Good morning and welcome.
I turned it off, sorry. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Representative Comtois, Belknap 7, representing Alton and Barnstead, for the record. We passed a noise ordinance bill last term, and the reason that this one has come forth is the bill was towns were putting in quiet hours ordinances, and that was negatively affecting agriculture. So what towns, through word of mouth to me, instead of using a quiet hours ordinance, they're now using a disturbance of the peace ordinance. So thus the reason that this bill is now being brought forth, because with all the building and going on, we can't lose our agricultural roots. And inhibit them from operating. And this amendment, hopefully there'll be no more regarding this issue, should take care of the noise issue regarding that. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Rosen.
Thank you. So this would just affect agriculture, right? Not the fact that construction can't start till 7 o'clock in the morning.
Nope,
That's a different statute.
that is a different statute. Correct.
Thank you.
You feel this furthers, we've passed a right to farm RSA, I think it's 432 or something. Do you feel this kind of helps further that and cement that the legislature is very supportive of agriculture in New Hampshire?
I absolutely do believe that. You know, people don't understand, and as you do, Senator Pearl, that when you want to spray your crops or you have to do something early in the morning and you have a quiet hours or a noise or disturbance of the peace that starts at either 7 or 9, we know that spraying of crops either has to be done well before those hours or well after the quiet hours or disturbance of the peace ordinances, you know, so that there's no drift. And we have to be cognizant of everything in agriculture regarding this.
I've been trying to convince the legislature that if we started hearings at 7 a.m., we could get done earlier on the other end, but so far I'm the only one that wants to do it.
Well,
Any further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
thank you.
Rob, you want to speak on this one? All right. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, Rob Johnson, representing the New Hampshire Farm Bureau as the Federation's policy director, and we are in support of the bill. As Representative Comtois mentioned, it goes back to a bill that was passed back in 2023, House Bill 252, and we just see this as clarifying the intent. It kind of takes care of what could be, as the sponsor mentioned, a loophole. Agriculture is not a 9-to-5 occupation. It's weather dependent. Again, as the sponsor alluded to, that if there's a need to spray crop protectants, you want to do that when there's no wind or little wind, and that's usually the morning or evening hours. This time of the year is a perfect example. I know on my small farm, I raise livestock, and when I need to use a tractor to put feed into the cattle, I sometimes have to access hay and bales and corner pasture. I want to get out there while the ground's frozen. With wet time of the year, I don't want to create ruts and that type of thing. And I know, like with in a sugaring business, the same type of thing. You want to try to get out on roads and such when they're not, when you're allowed to, when it's cold and it holds up a little bit better. So with that, I'll close my testimony and thank you for your consideration.
Any questions, Senator Rosen?
Living in an urban district, there's no farming. So my question is, has farm equipment gotten noisier over the past 20 years?
I don't believe so. I might say it's probably the opposite. I think it is, yes. And the bill is really tied to the operations and activities of production agriculture. And as you see, there's an exemption. It does not include agritourism. So that's that. But it really is tied to, the husbandry, raising of livestock, the cultivation of crops and that type of thing.
But it hasn't gotten noisier.
I think that would be a matter of opinion, but I do not think so. As far as equipment and such, I mean, back in the day, there wasn't the suppression devices, the mufflers weren't as required, where there's now some requirements now. And no, I wouldn't say it's gotten noisier.
Thank you.
Further questions? All right, seeing none. Anybody else that wants to testify on 272? All right, seeing none, we will close the hearing. You want to exec this one? You guys okay with it?
Well, the early bird gets the worm.
All right, so I'll accept the motion to go into exec.
Yes.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do we have a motion on 272?
Motion ought to pass 272.
Motion has been made of ought to pass and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
Consent.
opposed? Moved, consent is moved and seconded. All in favor? You want to take this one up?
Oh, I'd love to take this.
Senator McConkey will take this out. I think we need to still do a little bit of tinkering on 250, so we'll hold that one for now. That's the first one, yeah. Yeah.
I'm exactly I mean, we're in exec session, so
We can talk about that, yes.
I think G is the one.
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily run out.
they could. But I do want to, there is an underlying issue that Representative Bixby alluded to that we might want to put a different amendment on to fix another issue that's there. So I think we'll hold 250 right now. Yeah, we'll hold 250 right now.
We might want to narrow the definition of chasing a child, a good child, but a bad child.
I don't know how we'd write that into statute.
Yeah, my grandchild.
All right, with that, I'll take a motion to come out of exec.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We will be in recess until 9:30. All right, being 9:30, we will open the hearing on House Bill 355 and recognize Senator McConkey to introduce.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, esteemed members of the Senate. I'm here for my friend, Representative Ebel, to introduce House Bill 355. And this bill changes a member on the Solid Waste Working Group and extends the due dates for the interim and final reports.
Thank you. Matt Leahy, you want to speak on this one? Good morning, welcome to Senate Energy.
Good, thank you. Good morning, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Matt Leahy. I'm the Public Policy Director for the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forest. We have some written testimony. I won't read all of it, but I'll just kind of make 3 quick points. First, if this bill becomes law, we will be happy to serve on the Solid Waste Working Group. Second, and we note this in our letter, the Forest Society, we are not experts in solid waste management issues. We are a nonprofit land trust and forestry organization, so we protect and conserve land and also manage the forest resources on the lands that we own. But that kind of touches on my third point, that there are so many issues related to solid waste management, not just with landfills, but the whole big picture on this issue that do touch on environmental concerns, water resources, land resources. So, I think we, the Forest Society, could bring that perspective to the working group. And of course, we work with other environmental organizations like the Nature Conservancy, for example, and who certainly have resources. Those are national organizations too, so we could maybe touch on some of their expertise as well. So again, we'll be happy to serve.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Any questions, Senator Rosenwald?
Thank you. Showing how much I don't know about any of this. Did the Northeast Recycling Council disappear? Is that why they were being replaced?
I don't think they disappeared. I think it's, as I understand, I'm talking to Representative Ebel, it was more, they just didn't have the time or capacity to attend the meetings or serve on the committee. So, and it's as far as I know, it is still, working in existence, but I think it's more from their perspective. They just didn't have the capacity to serve. Yeah.
I think there was, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there another recycling group on this board as well?
Yes, Reagan Bissonette with the
Reagan,
Northeast, I can't remember the exact name.
It's similar to this other one.
Yes, right, and
So
right,
I
and she
think
is
it
still
was
on the
already
committee.
represented.
Yes.
That's partly the reason you could make
Correct.
this change and not have any issue.
Correct. Yeah.
Senator McConkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir, for being here and taking a question. And I apologize for not knowing so much about this group, but I have a question when we're adding a member on. Are there instances when groundwater in the forest and surrounding properties are not endangered, that there might be a place for waste facilities to cohabitate? Or is your group's position that you are against all siting of any such site?
Yeah, so we're actually not we don't have like a blanket policy that we are against landfills or new landfills. It's really site specific. How would the and just for the record, we have not. I know there's a big proposal up in Dalton. We have not engaged on that specific project. But to answer your question, if there was a proposed landfill somewhere else that maybe was adjacent to one of our reservations that we own, we would need to look at the specifics and if there was some potential maybe impact to adjacent abutting properties. But again, it's But just as a blanket policy, we're not opposed to landfills, obviously. I mean, they are the, least preferred option for dealing with solid waste, but we as an organization don't have a blanket policy that we are against landfills.
Paul?
Thank you, and thank you for that, and being a member of this organization, I wanted to hear that policy of this group is an open mind and looking at
Yes.
site-specific each
Correct.
time.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And just for the benefit, Senator, I don't think this group specifically takes positions on landfill siting anyway. It's mostly just dealing with solid waste issues, as I recall, the charge of this particular
Right.
commission.
Correct.
With offering recycling and suggestion issues.
Yep.
and all that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that.
Further questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Matt.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else wants to testify on 355? I know the room is full. It's an exciting hearing. All right, with that, we will close the hearing. You guys want to knock this one off? I mean, Kevin, I don't know that he cares on these.
Yeah.
All right.
Motion to go into executive session?
All in favor? Aye. Do we have a motion on this bill? About to pass?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent been
Second.
moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
You want to take this one out too, or do you want me to, Senator Rosenwald, do you want this one?
Hopefully it stays on consent, but.
All right. Senator
Thank you.
Rosenwald will bring this one up. And with that, we will take a motion to come out of exec.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. And we will be in recess until 9:45. We will open the hearing on House Bill 404 and recognize Representative Darby to introduce. Good morning and welcome to Senate Energy.
Thank you, Chair Pearl and honorable members of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. My name is Representative Will Darby, representing Hillsborough District 11, Nashua Ward, the welcoming people of Nashua Ward 8. I'm here today to introduce and support House Bill 404. A bit of background. This is regarding the language on the Hike Safe Card. A bit of background, the Hike Safe Card, the voluntary Hike Safe Card was introduced in 2015 to support fish and game search and rescue efforts. It raises between $100,000 and $300,000 a year, which is a significant help to fish and game, which is facing a multi-million-dollar budget deficit by 2027. The intent of this bill is to build interest in the Hike Safe Cards and access new markets. I was a member of the study committee to study fish and game funding and partnerships over the summer with Senator Waters. One of the recommendations was that the department increase outreach to organizations, partner organizations, to support the sale of that. And this bill is along those lines. So what's the problem? Right now, the definition of family in the Hike Safe Card is really disconnected with many modern current New Hampshire families. Specifically, it talks about it limits the definition of family to legal spouses, children, stepchildren, and guardianships. But as we've all seen, I'll give you some examples in my own personal life in a second, but as we've all seen, cohabitation is increasing dramatically and is very prevalent. Partners are having children with their partners without intent to get married. That's a family, in my opinion. Partners are choosing to have children before they marry because of getting married later in their lives. And partners that have children from other marriages are choosing to live together in familial relationships without getting married. Currently, about 1 in 4 unmarried adults, 30 to 39 in the U.S., are cohabitating. And according to some statistics I found, the average in New Hampshire was even higher than that 25%. So it's very prevalent. On a personal note, my own daughter had our first grandson last August, and she and her fiance chose to have him before they get married. They're getting married this year because they want to have a family. She's in her early 30s. They want to have a couple of children, and they didn't want to wait until sort of the formalities of getting married, which would have delayed when they would be able to have their last child. They're clearly a family. They own a house together, but it's just with a timing relationship. My ex-wife, as an example, cohabited with her partner, and my children considered her partner their stepfather for many, many, many years. Same thing with my wife's ex-husband and their partner. So it is. I just passed along those personal examples because it is so prevalent. This living together, having a family in all intents and purposes, but not being formally married. As I mentioned at the study committee for partnerships, there was a need to increase outreach to new groups. And for example, Tyler Ray of the Granite Outdoor Alliance recommended targeting a younger audience to develop strategic partnerships during his testimony to that study committee. I believe that by expanding the definition of family, it will exactly help with that outreach. Similarly, if the definition of family doesn't match what some of the organizations that Fish and Game may choose to partner with recognizes as family, they may be less inclined to partner with Fish and Game, and ultimately, not maximize the sale possibility. I did discuss this bill with Colonel Jordan. He wasn't able to make it here today, but ahead of time, and the term domestic partner is used elsewhere in statute, and it is defined in in some legislative rules, or sorry, in administrative rules as well. Lastly, I guess I'd just like to say that the Hike Safe card is a great way to provide some additional funding for fishing game, and we need to maximize the opportunities for sale, and the way to do that is through partnerships, and I think the way to increase those partnerships is to make the definitions of family on the Hike Safe card inclusive. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to testify today.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Do we have any questions? Mayor Rosenwald.
Here comes the ignorance number one. One of the things I've noticed while knocking on doors around Nashua is the growing incidence of multi-generational families.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if you thought about also adding the purchaser's parents or the spouse or domestic partner, well, probably, I don't know about domestic partners' parents, but spouses' parents. There are a number of grand families that seem to be living together.
Thank you for the question, Senator Rosenwald. Yes, I agree. I've observed the exact same thing, knocking doors in Nashua. And honestly, I think it's a bit of a good thing. I think that brings families together a bit more. When I mentioned that I had spoken with Colonel Jordan, one of the things he was worried about in the original text of the bill, which is not what you see here because we amended it in the House, was that he wasn't sure how he was going to, how the COs were going to determine what a domestic partner was. And so he asked me to add a definition. And that's that last line you see in this text, is it someone who shares the same address as the purchaser. So I do think that it would, I think that it would support that. Some people have asked me, like, well, you're just gonna have two roommates that, are trying to save $15. There is that worry, but I think the embarrassment factor, honestly, of, just rudely, two guys that happen to be living together saying, hey, let's buy a family card to save $15. I don't think they're going to do that because that would be, I think there's sort of a social awkwardness part of that. So, but I do think that families are going to be, families that are residing together are going to be able to take advantage of this.
Paul?
Because, thank you for taking my follow-up. If we don't add the parents, it's almost as if we're implying that a grandparent doesn't hike. And we know that many of them do.
True. Thank you for the question, Senator Rosenwald. I'm, of course, happy with any changes the Senate, this committee, thinks that they need to make to the bill. I would say that there is some concern along the same lines about trying to, encourage the sales as well. So imagine you have a lot of different cases. You have the cases where, a mom is living with her daughter and her daughter's family. I think that's a pretty clear case where you want to treat that as, a combined family. I think there's other cases where, you've got an in-law apartment, and the in-law apartment is, they're effectively their own familiar unit for all intents and purposes. I could see that being a separate, family card. So they would still hike, but they would just, buy their own card. I guess I'd like to take, my intent here is to increase the engagement with organizations that can promote the card on our behalf, on the fishing game's behalf, and that is really targeting the younger generation. So I would prefer personally not to make changes to this bill and let it go as it is. But of course, I'd be happy with any recommendations that the committee wants to make.
Senator McConkey with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Darby. What is the cost of the card?
The cost is, my understanding is $25 individually, or, thank you for the question, sorry, and $35 for a family.
Thank you. May I have some couple follow-ups? Sure. So the range of 100,000 to 300,000, except for my wife going shopping for furniture, is what I would call a very large range. Are we at 300,000 at this point, or is this income start going backwards?
My understanding from the study committee I was on over the summer is that the numbers continue to increase. The Fish and Game will testify after that, and I think they may be able to answer that question better than me. But my understanding is last year was the largest intake yet, and it was around the 300,000.
Thank you. And I think I'm near the end here. All right. So I love the idea of the outreach, but I'm wondering if this is a problem that doesn't need to be resolved at this point in time. I think maybe some of these funds could be used for actually advertising and outreach, but I question whether or not, when you have revenue increasing, which is what Fish and Game needs, that we start carving out other areas. So I question the need, and I ask. I guess what I'm asking you is this. It doesn't appear to be groups of people in any large number saying to you, you need to change this. And if I'm incorrect, you please tell me, because I'm seeing revenue increasing. What's your answer to that, sir?
Yes, thank you again for the question. What we heard in the study committee, again, this was Tyler Ray from the Granite Outdoor Alliance, which represents a broad consortium of outdoor organizations. These are guides, these are companies that sell hiking equipment, things like that, was that they felt that there was not enough engagement between Fish and Game and these organizations to promote the Hike Safe Card. And so we are looking for opportunities to increase those engagements. I should have mentioned at the outset that this is actually a constituent bill. The constituent that raised it is here to testify as well, because of personal experiences, his personal experience in going to purchase a Hike Safe Card. So I would not say that I'm just trying to dream stuff up and sort of make pull ideas out of nowhere. I think that it's sort of bridging two ideas: a need that people brought and that constituents brought with the request to broaden engagement by the communities that could help Fish and Game raise funds.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions from the committee? All right, Representative, we'll let you get upstairs and
Thank you so much
vote
for
on
the time
budget.
today.
Thank you for coming in. Noah Tulerski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Morning.
My name's Noah Tulerski. I live in Nashua Ward 8, where I'm represented by Representative Darby and by Senator Rosenwald. So this bill was my idea around this time 2 years ago. The weather starts to get warm. I buy my Hike Safe card. I don't hunt or fish, so this is how I like to contribute to maintaining our outdoor spaces in the state. I have the state park plates on my car also. And I was a couple months away from my wedding day, and I figured I'd probably be able to buy a family card. My then fiance, now wife, we lived together. And this is when I discovered the language that currently existed, that the family card was only for married spouses. So we bought 2 individual cards because I didn't want to, play around with the language and have an accident on a trail before we were actually married and, get in trouble or anything. So, but I am not the best example of this. It made me think about the number of other families in the state that would not be seen by the definition of only married spouses, people who live together and have children. Some of my friends are, have that situation where they've decided to have kids before getting married, or maybe they don't ever intend on getting married, but there absolutely would be families still. And so I think broadening the definition of family would encourage more people to participate in the program. It gives Fish and Game more resources to help keep the trails safe for everyone, and it gives them more opportunities to engage with hikers, remind them of safe hiking practices, and just encourage safe usage of the trails. So I think that this is something that would be a benefit to the state by allowing more people to participate in the Hike Safe program, and just changing the language to allow more in recognition of the way that families are in our state. More and more often, it's not exclusively married couples, and I don't think that marriage is the one way that we should be defining family, or the way that most people in the state do define families at this point. So yes, I would encourage the committee to continue to move this bill forward as with an ought to pass recommendation.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, and I have a copy of written
Great.
testimony for the.
Fasten. Any questions for Noel? All right, looks like we're gonna let you off easy.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
for coming in. Major Walsh? The Colonel was busy today? Well, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you. My name is David Walsh. I'm the Major, the Assistant Chief of Law Enforcement for New Hampshire Fish and Game. Quite simply, we are in support of this bill. The commission feels that it cleans up the language. It makes it easier for people. It's more inclusive. And most importantly, it doesn't deter from people purchasing the card. I'd like to also say, based on the questions I've heard, I'd just like to make a few comments. One, the Hike Safe card in 2024 resulted in $390,000, and since its inception in 2015, it has gone up every single year. If you charted it out, it would be pretty much straight up. For the first time in 2023, we've had more non-residents purchase the card than residents, which I see as a positive just because of the tourism that we come in for hiking. And to put it in perspective, we average about 180 search missions a year, and we recommend billing. If you're not familiar, we have to recommend billing to the AG's office, and they make the final determination if we bill someone. We recommend billing on average 12 times a year out of 180 missions.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's not, not a huge part of it.
So are most of your rescues, are they Hike Safe card or hunting license holders?
We are keeping track of it now, and the majority is still not Hike Safe card holders, but the majority are not reckless either.
I see. Yeah, that's a
Excuse me, are not what?
reckless.
Reckless, okay.
Do you know how they bill or why they bill? Do you mind explaining that just a
Sure.
little bit?
Yeah, so the way the statute is worded is if, essentially, they have to be reckless. Even with a Hike Safe card, they can be billed if they're considered really reckless. In other words, if you were gonna go hike a trail and somebody was there and said, "Sir, it's 30 degrees below zero with 40-mile-per-hour winds up top, you're not dressed appropriately," and you said, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it anyway," that's just recklessness. So then we look at it on a case-by-case basis, and we refer to the AG's office. They look at the statute, and they determine the final determination of who gets billed.
Question from Senator McConkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Major Walsh. So a couple of technical questions. Making it easy for your people in the field, I agree with that. Is there currently a number of people that can be assigned to a card? My mother was one of 12 and they adopted a 13, so families were much larger. Now they tend to be 1.2 or something per. So I could see that there wouldn't be a number associated with the traditional family, but if we're opening it up to grandma, grandpa, who's probably paying the bill to start with, and they should be on that card, is there a limit of 4 or 5, or could we consider a limit on there of opening to that extended family? Would that be of any benefit at all? I'm looking for more money for your department.
Right, thank you, I appreciate that. The way this proposed bill is, you know, I could certainly see all those additions. I don't see that as a negative impact. I think we're still gonna have the same sales, or relatively the same sales. When you explain, you know, a household with all those people, are they all gonna go hike and purchase an individual card? I don't think so. So I don't think there's gonna be a net loss, if that makes any sense.
So we've had the new, I believe director's the right term for
Yes.
for your department. The new director's been in here. And she has talked about ushering in a more modern system and using more internet and so forth. I would be hopeful that when we're talking of interactions and getting more groups involved, I would hope that maybe you could relay to the director that an outreach on through your department, tagging Fish and Game, or excuse me, tagging fishing, hunting, and all those people to expand that card as a suggestion.
Absolutely. In fact, she's been in some discussions with DMV to get some more advertising out at DMV, at the welcome centers, social media.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rosenwald with a question.
I have a couple of questions too. Thanks for taking them. I know that the Hike Safe card doesn't cover more than half of the search and rescue fees. Has the department given any thought to a different fee schedule for non-residents versus residents?
The department has not, it has been brought up to our attention, and to the senator's point earlier, we take a look at it as it's going up every year. It's tremendously successful. We're really afraid to tinker with it by increasing those fees. But to your original point, the Hike Safe card covers well more than half of the fees for our search and rescue. Our search and rescue's been in the black now for about 5 years, and the majority of the funds coming in are from Hike Safe. So I don't know if you know the two funding mechanisms for search and rescue are $1 on every boat, ATV, and snowmobile registration, donations, and then the Hike Safe card. The Hike Safe card is bringing in more money now than those other two.
I've been given different information by the LBA,
There's a lot of different information being
Okay.
floated out there, yep.
but I do have a second unrelated question. So in September, this coming year, I will have been married for 47 years. I've never used my husband's last name. How would the department know that I was a spouse if we had a family Hike Safe card?
Good question. So if you were, you know, a victim where you were rescued, we would ask you, we do an interview when we get somebody off a mountain, usually as we're getting them in the ambulance or whatever, and one of the questions is, do you have a Hike Safe card? If you said yes, and they said, you know, whose card is it under, and you said, unless there was gonna be a serious billing issue, we would probably take your word for it, but we could certainly check addresses to see if you meet the definition of a domestic partner.
So I wouldn't need to bring a marriage certificate?
No.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
You want to hike with that?
I don't, because I had to get it from New York City to prove we were married for health insurance a few years ago,
Yeah,
and it took months.
yeah. Any further questions for the major?
No.
All right, seeing none, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anybody else who would like to testify on 404? All right, seeing none, we'll close the hearing. Do you want to save any of these for Kevin? Or?
Let's save this one for him.
All right, we'll save this one for him. Let him have his input.
So the hip thing now, Madam Senator, is to keep your maiden name in the whole name. You were rogue.
All right,
name was longer
Longer than your
And
name?
Rosenwald. Wow, all right.
more hard to spell, and I didn't have any brothers.
Uh-huh.
And so, both of my sisters and I, when we married, we all kept.
All right, I'm gonna end the hearing today.
Genealogy story.
Thank you all.
Thank you.